She kissed him. The hall went silent. He didn't move, didn't push her away. She pulled back. Leave, now. It was a dare. I don't care. Leave. People backed away. Guards looked terrified. Who are you? Someone whispered behind her. The Lycan King. She ran. He didn't follow. But 3 days later, he sent guards to her door. The king demands your presence.
I'm not gonna lie. The second she kissed him, my stomach dropped. Because you don't just kiss the Lycan King and walk away clean. Subscribe to Shadow Moon Stories if you want to see exactly how bad this gets. Spoiler, it's bad.
2 hours earlier, Sylvestra had been invisible. That's how she preferred it. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant she could move through the Great Hall without anyone remembering her face or asking her name. She was an Omega, wolfless, the kind of person nobles didn't see unless they needed someone to blame. Tonight was the spring feast. The hall was packed with people who mattered, lords in silk, ladies dripping in gold, alphas who carried themselves like they owned the air they breathed. The chandeliers overhead burned bright, casting shadows that made everyone look taller, sharper more. Sylvestra carried a tray of empty goblets toward the kitchens. Her dress was plain gray linen. Her hair was tied back in a braid that had started to come loose hours ago. She kept her head down. That's when she heard them. A group of young nobles near one of the side tables. 3 girls, 2 boys, all of them flushed with wine and boredom. One of them, a girl with dark curls and a dress that cost more than Sylvestra made in a year, looked right at her. You, the girl said. Sylvestra stopped. Yes, my lady. Come here. She obeyed. She always did. The girl leaned in, her breath sweet with alcohol. See that man over there, near the high table, the one in black. Sylvestra followed her gaze. He stood alone, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark armor with fur across his shoulders. His hair was long and tied back at his neck. He wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking. He wasn't talking to anyone. He just stood there, arms at his sides, watching the room like he was counting exits. Who is he? Sylvestra asked quietly. The nobles exchanged glances. One of them laughed. That's Malorek Steelclaw, the boy said. The most ruthless man in this hall, maybe in the entire kingdom. Sylvestra had heard the name before. Whispers in the kitchens. Servants crossing themselves when they passed certain hallways. Stories about battlefields and executions and wars that ended because he decided they should. I dare you to kiss him, the girl said. Sylvestra's stomach dropped. What? You heard me. Walk up to him and kiss him, or admit you're exactly what everyone says you are. A coward Omega who hides in the corners. The others laughed, not kind laughter, the kind that made her chest tight. She looked at him again. Malorek. He hadn't moved. His hands rested loosely at his sides, but his posture was controlled, precise, like he was ready to react to anything but choosing not to. I can't, Sylvestra said. Of course you can't, the girl said. You're too scared. Something in Sylvestra snapped. Maybe it was the wine she'd tasted earlier when no one was looking. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was just being tired of shrinking every time someone looked at her. She handed her tray to the nearest servant and started walking. The stone floor felt colder with every step. Malorek noticed her when she was still 5 paces away, not with surprise, with attention. His gaze lowered slowly, gray eyes locking onto her face like he'd been expecting her all along. Up close, he was even bigger than she'd thought. The armor made him look carved from stone. His jaw was sharp, clean-shaven. His hands were scarred. Old wounds healed poorly. Sylvestra didn't let herself think. She rose onto her toes and pressed her lips to his. The hall went silent. Malorek went completely still. He didn't pull away, he didn't grab her, he didn't move at all. He just stood there and let it happen. 3 heartbeats. Then Sylvestra pulled back, her pulse roaring in her ears. His eyes were on her, still gray, still calm, but there was something in them now that hadn't been there before. Not anger, not interest, something else, something that made her throat tighten. She started. It was a dare I didn't know. "Leave," he said. His voice was low, quiet, final. Not a suggestion, a command. Sylvestra took a step back, then another. Her hands were shaking, her legs felt unsteady. "Before this becomes something you can't undo," Malorek added, his gaze never leaving hers. She turned and walked, fast, her vision blurred at the edges. The nobles she passed stared at her like she'd just committed treason. Maybe she had, she didn't know anymore. She reached the door and shoved it open, stepping into the cold hallway beyond. Only then did she stop. Only then did she breathe. But even out here, away from the torches and the crowd and the nobles who dared her, she felt it. His gaze, still on her, still watching. Like he was waiting for her, to make her next mistake. Sylvestra didn't sleep that night. She kept replaying it, the way the hall had gone quiet, the way his eyes had stayed on hers, the way he'd said, "Leave," like he was giving her a gift instead of a command. By morning, the rumors had already started. She heard them in the kitchens when she went to fetch water. 2 servants whispering near the bread ovens, their voices low but not low enough. Kissed Malorek Steelclaw. Must have a death wish. Surprised she's still alive. Sylvestra kept her head down and filled her bucket. Neither of them acknowledged her. They didn't have to. She knew what they were thinking. The other Omegas avoided her completely. When she walked past them in the corridors, they pressed themselves against the walls like she carried a disease. No one spoke to her. No one looked at her. She'd gone from invisible to untouchable overnight. The nobles were worse. She caught them starring when she refilled their wine, heard them laughing behind their hands. One lady leaned over to her companion and whispered something that made them both giggle, their eyes flicking towards Sylvestra like she was part of a joke she hadn't been told. She wanted to disappear, but she couldn't afford to lose this position. Omegas didn't get second chances. So she kept working, kept her head down, kept waiting for guards to drag her away. They never came. Malorek stood alone in his chambers, staring at nothing. He'd felt the kiss, of course he had. It wasn't desire that hit him first, it was recognition. Like his body had been waiting for something it didn't know was missing, and then suddenly there it was, warm, brief, unexpected. Her lack of fear unsettled him more than anything else. She'd walked up to him like he was just another man in the hall. No hesitation, no trembling hands, no bowing or scraping or begging for permission. She'd just done it. And then she'd looked at him afterward with those wide eyes, waiting for punishment, and something in his chest had pulled tight. He could have hurt her, he should have. That's what they expected, what they would have understood. But he didn't want to. That was the problem. Malorek turned away from the window and forced himself to focus. He had reports to read, decisions to make, a kingdom that ran on his word alone. He couldn't afford distractions. Especially not this one. The Raven came 3 days later. Sylvestra was in her room, a tiny space in the servants' quarters, barely big enough for a bed and a trunk, when she heard the tapping on her window. She opened it. The bird was massive. Black feathers, silver markings on its wings. It dropped a folded piece of parchment onto her windowsill and flew off before she could react. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. The message was short, no greeting, no signature. Eastern Courtyard, Dawn, come if you want answers. That was it. Sylvestra read it 3 times. She should ignore it, burn it, pretend it never arrived. But she knew she wouldn't. The courtyard was empty when she arrived. Dawn light spilled across the stone, soft and gray. The air smelled like rain. Sylvestra wrapped her cloak tighter around her shoulders and waited. Malorek appeared from the far archway. He wasn't wearing armor this time, just dark linen, the fabric loose across his chest and arms. His hair was down, falling past his shoulders. Without the steel and fur, he looked different, not smaller, just more human. Somehow that made him worse. He stopped a few paces away, his gray eyes finding hers. "You came," he said. "You sent for me. I gave you a choice." Sylvestra lifted her chin. So did you. You could have had me arrested. Malorek's mouth almost curved. Almost. I could have. Why didn't you? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he moved closer, slow and deliberate, until he was close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. You should stay away from me, he said quietly. You sent for me, she repeated. I know, he exhaled, something that might have been frustration or amusement. She couldn't tell. That's the problem. I don't understand. You're not supposed to. Malorek turned slightly, looking out toward the gardens beyond the courtyard. Do you know what I do, Sylvestra? Hearing her name and his voice made her stomach flip. You're a lord, aren't you? Or a commander? I command armies, he said. My word ends wars or starts them. When I give an order, people die. That's not a threat. It's just what happens. Sylvestra swallowed. Then why am I still alive? He looked back at her. Because you didn't ask permission. She blinked. What? Everyone else in that hall knows who I am. What I've done, they bow before they speak. They measure every word. They're terrified. He paused. You weren't. I was, she admitted. After. But not before. Malorek's voice dropped lower. You walked up to me like I was just another man. You chose me, and I don't. He stopped himself. I don't steal what's freely given. Sylvestra's heart hammered against her ribs. It was a dare. Was it? He stepped closer. Or were you tired of being invisible? She didn't have an answer for that. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just heavy. Finally, Sylvestra spoke. Why did you let me kiss you? Malorek held her gaze. Because you chose. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Sylvestra knew she should leave, walk away, go back to being invisible and safe. But she didn't move. I should go, she said. Yes, Malorek agreed. You should. Neither of them moved. The courtyard felt smaller suddenly, the space between them charged with something she didn't have a name for. Will you send for me again? She asked. Malorek's jaw tightened. I shouldn't. But will you? He studied her for a long moment. Then, finally, he nodded once. Yes. Sylvestra turned to leave. She made it 3 steps before she stopped and looked back at him. What's your full name? Malorek's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, not quite pain. You'll find out soon enough, he said quietly. And when you do, you'll wish you'd stayed away. The meeting started small. Malorek would send the raven. Sylvestra would go. They'd meet in places where no one else went. The eastern courtyard before dawn, the library after midnight, the old battlements where wind made conversation difficult. He never touched her, not once, not even by accident. If she moved closer, he'd take a step back. If she reached for something near him, he'd hand it to her without their fingers brushing. It was deliberate, controlled, like he was following rules she couldn't see. You don't have to keep coming, he told her one night in the library. Books surrounded them, their spines cracked with age. A single candle burned between them on the table. I know, Sylvestra said. Then why do you? She thought about it. Because you're not what they say you are. Malorek's jaw tightened. Yes, I am. No, she leaned forward slightly. You're exactly what they say you are, but you're also something else. He didn't ask what she meant. Maybe he already knew. You should be afraid of me, he said quietly. I am. That made him look at her, really look at her. And yet you're still here, he said. So are you. The hall noticed. Of course they did. Sylvestra had been invisible for years, and now suddenly she wasn't. Guards watched her when she passed. Nobles whispered. Servants gave her strange looks when they thought she wasn't paying attention. The worst were the noble women. Lady Isadora cornered her in the corridor outside the great hall 3 weeks after the kiss. 2 other ladies flanked her, their silk dresses rustling as they moved. Omega, Isadora said, not Sylvestra, just Omega. Sylvestra stopped, her hands full of linens she was supposed to deliver to the guest chambers. Yes, my lady. Isadora's smile was thin, I'm curious. What do you think you're doing? I'm sorry. With Lord Steelclaw, Isadora stepped closer. She smelled like roses and wine. Do you really think a man like that would look twice at something like you? Sylvestra's chest tightened. I don't know what you mean. Of course you don't. Isadora laughed softly. The other women joined in. Let me be clear, whatever game you're playing, it ends now. Stay away from him, or you'll regret it. Sylvestra met her gaze. Is that a threat? It's advice. I didn't ask for it. Isadora's smile vanished. You little. Is there a problem here? All four of them turned. A guard stood at the end of the corridor. Not just any guard. Captain Thorn, Malorek's captain. No problem, Isadora said quickly, her voice suddenly pleasant. We were just having a conversation. Thorn's eyes flicked to Sylvestra. Is that true? Sylvestra hesitated, then nodded. Good, Thorn said. Lady Isadora, I believe the king requested your presence in the throne room. The king didn't, Isadora started, then stopped. Something in Thorn's expression made her reconsider. Of course. Thank you, Captain. She swept past him, the other women following. None of them looked at Sylvestra again. When they were gone, Thorn turned to leave as well. Captain, Sylvestra called out. He paused. Did the king really summon Lady Isadora? Thorn's mouth almost smiled. No. Then he was gone. It happened again 2 days later. A servant who'd been spreading rumors about her suddenly stopped. A guard who'd followed her too closely was reassigned. A noble who'd tried to trip her in the hall apologized publicly the next morning. Sylvestra wasn't stupid. She knew who was behind it. That night, when the raven came, she went to the courtyard ready to confront him. Malorek was already there, standing near the fountain. His hair was loose again, falling around his face in a way that made him look younger, less controlled. You've been protecting me, Sylvestra said without preamble. He didn't deny it. Yes. Why? Because they shouldn't touch you. I can handle myself. I know, Malorek turned to face her fully. That's not why I'm doing it. Then why? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because I don't want them to. Sylvestra's pulse quickened. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She walked toward him, 3 steps, 4, close enough now that she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands flexed at his sides like he was fighting the urge to reach for her. You never touch me, she said. No. Why? Malorek's jaw worked. Because if I start, I won't stop. The words hung between them. Sylvestra took another step. What if I want you to? His eyes darkened. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. Sylvestra, her name came out rough, warning, you need to step back. No. I'm not, he exhaled hard. I'm not a good man. I know. I've killed people, more than you can count. I've ordered executions, started wars, ended bloodlines. His voice dropped. I'm not someone you should want. Sylvestra looked up at him, and yet here we are. Malorek stared at her. Something in his expression cracked, just for a second. Then he moved. Vast. One hand cupped her face, tilting her chin up. His thumb brushed her cheek. He leaned down, close enough that she could feel his breath against her lips. And then he stopped. If I take more, he said quietly, I won't stop. Do you understand? Sylvestra's heart hammered. Yes. Then you know why I can't. He pulled away, stepped back, put distance between them like it physically hurt. Sylvestra stood there, breathless, her face still warm where he'd touched her. This isn't about want, Malorek said, his voice carefully controlled again. It's about what happens if I let myself have you. And what happens? He met her eyes. Everything changes, and not in ways you're ready for. Sylvestra walked back to her room that night in a daze. She'd expected him to kiss her. She'd wanted him too. But when he pulled away instead, when he warned her again, she'd felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't lust. This wasn't some powerful man taking what he wanted because he could. This was restraint, dangerous, painful restraint. And that meant whatever he was holding back was worse than anything she'd imagined. Sylvestra discovered the truth by accident. She was carrying fresh linens through the east wing when she heard voices echoing from one of the side chambers. The door was half open. She should have kept walking. She didn't. His Majesty requires the reports by dawn. Her feet stopped moving. Yes, High Sovereign. The council will be informed. High Sovereign. Sylvestra's hands tightened on the linens. Steelclaw's orders are absolute. She knew that name. Everyone did. Steelclaw, the family that had ruled for 3 generations, the bloodline that commanded armies and bent kingdoms. But that couldn't be. The Lycan King will not tolerate delays. The linens slipped from her hands. The voices stopped. The door opened fully. A nobleman stepped out, saw her standing there, and immediately dropped to one knee. "Apologies," he said quickly. "We didn't realize anyone was." But Sylvestra was already backing away. Her mind couldn't hold on to thoughts. They kept slipping away like water. Lycan King. Malorek was the Lycan King. She turned and ran. She found him in the battlements an hour later. The raven hadn't come. She hadn't waited for it. She'd just gone to every place they'd met until she found him. Malorek stood facing the mountains, his hands resting on the stone wall. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "Sylvestra." "Is it true?" Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "Are you the Lycan King?" He went still. "Yes." The word hit her like a blow. "You're the king," she repeated. "The king, and you didn't think that was important to mention." "I told you what I was." "No." She walked toward him, anger burning through the shock. "You said you commanded armies. You said your word killed people. You didn't say you ruled the entire kingdom. Would it have changed anything?" "Of course it would have." She stopped in front of him, her hands shaking. "Do you know what I thought? I thought you were a lord, maybe a general, someone important but not. Not this," he finished quietly. "You let me kiss you," Sylvestra said. "In front of the entire court. Do you know what that means? Do you know what people are saying?" "Yes." "And you didn't stop me." "No." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why would you do that?" Malorek's expression hardened. "Because I wanted you to choose me without knowing." "That's not fair." "I know." He took a step toward her. "But if I'd told you, if you'd known who I was, you never would have walked up to me. You would have bowed. You would have been terrified. And He stopped himself. "I wanted one moment where someone looked at me and saw a man instead of a crown." Sylvestra stared at him. "You manipulated me." "I gave you the truth in pieces," Malorek said. "I never lied. I told you I was ruthless. I told you people died at my command. I told you to stay away. I warned you, Sylvestra. Every time we met, I gave you a way out. But you never told me the one thing that mattered." "Because it shouldn't have mattered." His voice rose slightly. "Your choice should have been about what you wanted, not about who I am or what power I hold. That's not how the world works." "I know," Malorek's control finally cracked. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't see the way people bow before they speak, the way they calculate every word? I haven't had a real conversation in years. Everyone wants something. Everyone's afraid." He paused. "Except you." Sylvestra's throat tightened. "I was afraid." "Not of me, not really." He stepped closer. "You were afraid of what you felt. That's different." "You should have told me." "Yes," he agreed. "I should have." The admission caught her off guard. "But I didn't," Malorek continued, "because I'm selfish. Because I wanted more time before everything changed. Before you looked at me the way everyone else does." Sylvestra looked up at him. His gray eyes were tired, honest, raw in a way she'd never seen before. "I don't know what to do with this," she said quietly. "Neither do I." Sylvestra left without another word. She went back to her room and didn't come out for 2 days. She ignored the raven when it came. She ignored the servants who whispered. She ignored everything except the hollow feeling in her chest that wouldn't go away. She felt stupid, exposed, like she'd been performing in front of an audience she couldn't see. The Lycan King. She'd kissed the Lycan King. On a dare. The summons came on the third day. Not for her, for him. Sylvestra heard about it from another servant, a girl named Myra who'd always been kind to her. The council's demanding a meeting, Myra whispered. They want him to explain why he's been seen with you. They're calling it improper, dangerous. Sylvestra's stomach dropped. What will they do? Myra's face was pale. They'll demand your removal. Exile, probably, maybe worse. Worse? Myra didn't answer. She didn't need to. Sylvestra found Captain Thorn in the training yard that evening. I need to speak to him, she said without preamble. Thorn looked at her. He's in council. When will he be out? Unknown, Thorn paused. The council is demanding answers about you. I know. They want you gone. Sylvestra's chest tightened. What does he want? Thorn's expression shifted. Not quite sympathy, something closer to respect. What he wants, Thorn said carefully, and what he can have are two different things. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you. Sylvestra turned to leave, then stopped. Captain. Yes. If they decide to exile me, will he let them? Thorn was quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't know, but I do know this. No one's made him choose before, not like this. The council chamber was behind closed doors. Sylvestra stood in the corridor outside, her heart hammering. She shouldn't be here. If they found her listening, they'd have even more reason to remove her. But she couldn't leave. Inside, voices rose and fell. She couldn't make out words, just tones. Anger, frustration, command. Then one voice cut through clearly. Malorek's. I will not dismiss her. Silence. Then another voice, older and sharp. Your Majesty, with respect, you cannot allow an Omega to. I can allow whatever I choose, Malorek said coldly. That's what it means to be king. This is bigger than one woman, another voice interjected. The court is in chaos. The nobles are demanding action. If you continue this association, you risk. I risk nothing, Malorek interrupted. She does, that's the difference. More silence. Then the older voice again. Then you leave us no choice. Tomorrow at dawn, this matter will be brought before the full court. You will be required to make your position clear, publicly. Fine, Malorek said. And the Omega will be present, the voice continued, so that all may witness your decision. Sylvestra's breath caught. No, Malorek said sharply. It's not a request, Your Majesty. If you will not dismiss her in private, you will do so in public, or you will claim her formally. Those are your only options. The words hung in the air. Sylvestra pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. Inside, Malorek's voice was deadly quiet. Dawn, then. Sylvestra didn't sleep. She sat on her bed until dawn, still wearing the same dress from the day before. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Her mind kept replaying Malorek's voice through the council chamber door. I will not dismiss her. But what did that mean? What could it mean when the entire kingdom was watching? The guards came for her, when the sun barely touched the horizon. The court is assembled, one of them said, not unkindly. You're to come with us. Sylvestra stood. Her legs felt unsteady. They led her through corridors she'd cleaned 100 times, past rooms where she'd been invisible, through doors that had never been opened to her before. The Great Hall. The same hall where this had all started. It was packed. Every noble in the kingdom must have been there. They lined the walls, filled the balconies, crowded near the high table, all of them watching, waiting. The guards brought her to the center of the hall and stopped. Sylvestra stood alone on the stone floor. The crowd pressed in around her, their whispers building like a wave. Just an Omega. Nerve to even stand there. Should be on her knees already. Then the doors at the far end opened. Malorek entered. He was in full regalia now, black armor etched with silver, fur across his shoulders. a crown of obsidian and silver on his head. His hair was pulled back, his expression carved from stone. He looked like a king. He looked untouchable. The hall went silent as he walked toward the high table. Every person in the room bowed, every person except Sylvestra. She couldn't move. Malorek took his place at the center of the high table and sat. His gray eyes found hers across the distance and held. An older man, silver-haired, robed in council colors, stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he began, "we are here to address the matter of this Omega and her association with you." Malorek didn't respond, just waited. The councilman gestured toward Sylvestra. "She has been seen in your company repeatedly. She has caused disruption in the court. She has brought dishonor to the crown by her presumption." "Presumption," Malorek repeated flatly. "Yes, your Majesty." The councilman's voice grew stronger. "She kissed you without permission. She has allowed herself to be seen as your equal when she is nothing but—" "Careful," Malorek said quietly. The councilman stopped, swallowed. The silence stretched. Then another voice rose from the crowd. A noblewoman Sylvestra recognized, Lady Isidora. "She should kneel," Isidora said. "She should beg forgiveness for her audacity." Others joined in. "Kneel. She has no right to stand before the king. Make her kneel." The chant built, not everyone, but enough. Enough that Sylvestra's throat tightened. Enough that she felt the weight of every eye in the room. The councilman turned to her. "Omega, you will kneel before your king." Sylvestra's hands clenched at her sides. "Now," the councilman commanded. She didn't move. "I said kneel." "Enough." Malorek's voice cut through the hall like a blade. Everyone froze. He stood slowly, walked down from the high table. His boots echoed on the stone as he crossed the hall toward her. The crowd pulled back, giving them space. Malorek stopped directly in front of Sylvestra, close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw, the careful control in his posture. He didn't speak to the council, didn't address the nobles. He looked at her. "Do you wish to kneel?" he asked quietly. The question hit her like cold water. Not a command, a choice. Sylvestra met his gaze, her heart hammered, her hands shook. The entire kingdom was watching. "No," she said. Gasps rippled through the hall. "No," the councilman sputtered. "Your Majesty, she refuses." "I heard her," Malorek said without looking away from Sylvestra. "I'm asking again, do you wish to kneel?" "No," she repeated, stronger this time. Something flickered in his eyes, not quite a smile, something deeper. "Then don't," he said. The hall erupted. Nobles shouting, council members protesting, someone calling for guards. Malorek reached out and took her hand. The hall went silent again. His grip was warm, steady. His thumb brushed across her knuckles once deliberately before he turned to face the crowd. "I asked her to kneel," Malorek said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "She refused, and I will not force her." "Your Majesty," the councilman started. "I do not claim her because she is weak," Malorek continued, speaking over him. "I honor her because she chose me when no one else would have dared, because she walked up to me knowing nothing of crowns or power or fear, because she looked at me and saw a man, not a title." He glanced down at Sylvestra. His voice dropped, meant only for her. "If you stay, there will be danger, blood, war. The council will fight this. The nobles will never accept it. Your life will never be simple again." Sylvestra looked up at him. "I kissed you once without knowing who you were. Now I know, and I'm still here." Malorek turned back to the hall, still holding her hand. "Sylvestra Imberlite stands by my will," he declared. "And by her own, anyone who challenges her answers to me." The councilman stepped forward, his face red. "Your Majesty, this is unacceptable. The council will not." "The council will accept what I tell them to accept," Malorek said coldly, "or they will be replaced." Silence. Then, slowly, one person knelt. Captain Thorne, down on one knee, his fist over his heart. Then another guard, then another. One by one, the soldiers in the room knelt, not to Malorek, to both of them. The nobles stood frozen, shocked, some angry, some terrified. But none of them moved. Malorek looked down at Sylvestra. 3 heartbeats, he said quietly. That's all it took. To do what? She asked. His mouth curved slightly, the first real smile she'd ever seen from him. To change everything. The hall didn't stay silent for long. Within an hour, the council convened again. Emergency session. Closed doors. Sylvestra heard the shouting from 3 corridors away. Within 2 hours, messengers were dispatched to every corner of the kingdom. The news would spread fast. The Lycan King had chosen an Omega, publicly, irrevocably. Within 3 hours, the threats started arriving. Sylvestra was in Malorek's chambers. She'd been moved there immediately after the hall, guards posted outside, when Captain Thorn brought the first letter. Northern lords, Thorn said grimly. They're calling it an insult to the bloodline, threatening to withdraw their armies. Malorek took the letter without reading it. And the eastern territories. Worse, they're suggesting the king has lost his mind, that an Omega has bewitched him. Thorn paused. They're talking about war, your majesty. Let them talk. Thorn left. Sylvestra stood by the window, her arms wrapped around herself. This is because of me. This is because of them, Malorek corrected. He was still in his armor, though he'd removed the crown. They've been looking for an excuse to challenge me for years. You just gave them one they think they can use. People are going to die. Yes. The bluntness of it hit her hard. You should let me go. Tell them I forced myself on you. Tell them anything, just... No. Malorek. No, he repeated. He crossed the room to her. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for politics. This isn't about sacrifice. This is about stopping a war. Wars don't stop because one person steps aside, Malorek said. They find another excuse, another target. If not you, then someone else. He paused. I'm tired of giving them what they want. Sylvestra looked up at him. What do you want? You know what I want. Say it anyway. Malorek's jaw tightened. You, I want you. I've wanted you since you walked up to me in that hall and kissed me like I was nobody, like I was just a man you were too stubborn to be afraid of. Her throat closed. I was afraid. Not enough to stop. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face. But you should be afraid now. This won't be clean. It won't be easy. If you stay, people will hate you. They'll try to hurt you. The council will fight me at every turn. And yes, there will be blood. You're trying to scare me away. I'm trying to be honest. His thumb brushed her cheek. I'm giving you one last chance to leave. I'll protect you. I'll send you somewhere safe, somewhere they can't reach you. You can live a normal life, a quiet life, everything you had before I. Before you what? Sylvestra interrupted. Before you let me choose you. Malorek went still. You keep acting like you took something from me, she continued. Like you stole my choice, but you didn't. You gave me the only real choice I've ever had. She reached up and covered his hand with hers. I'm not staying because I don't understand the cost. I'm staying because I do. Sylvestra. I'm not done. Her voice shook but didn't break. You asked me if I wished to kneel. I said no, and I meant it. Not just in that hall, not just for that moment. I meant it for everything that comes after. Malorek stared at her. Something in his expression cracked open. I'm choosing you, Sylvestra said. Not because you're the king, not because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't. I'm choosing you because 3 heartbeats wasn't enough, and I want more. Malorek didn't ask if she was sure. He didn't give her another warning. He just pulled her close and kissed her. Not careful this time, not controlled. This was everything he'd been holding back. His hands in her hair, her arms around his neck. The kind of kiss that felt like falling and flying at the same time. When they finally pulled apart, both of them breathing hard, Sylvestra looked up at him. I kissed you first, she said. Yes. On a dare. Yes. This time, she said, I'm kissing you because I want to. She rose onto her toes and kissed him again. Softer this time, slower. On her terms. When she pulled back, Malorek's eyes were dark, warm, alive in a way she'd never seen before. 3 heartbeats, he murmured. What about them? They changed everything. The council tried one more time the next morning. They brought letters, reports, evidence of unrest. They laid it all before Malorek and demanded he reconsider. He refused. Dismissed, he said. Your Majesty, you must. I said dismissed. They left, all of them angry, defeated. Only Captain Thorn remained. The Northern Lords are mobilizing, Thorn said quietly. It'll be war within a month. I know. You're sure about this? Malorek glanced toward the door where Sylvestra had just left to meet with the palace healers, learning what she'd need to know, preparing for what was coming. Yes, he said, I'm sure. Thorn nodded once. Then we'll be ready. A week later, the formal ceremony took place. Not a wedding, not yet, but a public acknowledgement. Sylvestra and Malorek bound to the Lycan King, standing beside him, recognized by the crown. The great hall was full again, but this time the energy was different, not shock, not rage. Acceptance. Slowly, reluctantly, but there. When Malorek took her hand and led her to the high table, when he seated her beside him instead of below him, when he spoke to her as an equal in front of everyone, that's when it became real. The hall bowed. Not just to the king. To both of them. To the Omega, who had dared to kiss the most ruthless man in the hall and changed a kingdom in 3 heartbeats. Later, when the hall had emptied, and it was just the 2 of them standing in the quiet, Sylvestra turned to Malorek. What happens now? War, he said honestly. Politics, blood, everything I warned you about. And after? Malorek smiled, the real one, the one he only gave her. After, he said, we rebuild, together. Sylvestra looked out at the empty hall, the same hall where she'd been invisible, where she'd taken a dare that should have gotten her killed. 3 heartbeats, that's all it took. 3 heartbeats to kiss a king. 3 heartbeats to choose herself. 3 heartbeats to change everything. Together, she repeated. And for the first time in her life, Sylvestra and Malorek wasn't afraid of what came next.
All right, that's it. That's the story of how a dare turned into a revolution. Shadow Moon Stories has more where this came from. People doing unhinged things for love and somehow making it work. Hit subscribe if that's your vibe. Comment your current time and tell me if you think the council's gonna try to assassinate her. Because let's be real, they're definitely gonna try. This story teaches that true power doesn't demand, it respects. That courage isn't fearlessness, it's choosing dignity over safety. That one person refusing to kneel can shift an entire kingdom. Sylvestra didn't just choose a king, she chose herself first. And sometimes that's the most revolutionary act of all.